Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second webinar for our rehost webinar series, Moving IBM Mainframe Workloads to AWS. Today, our special guest from AWS, Antonio Esclavo, EMEA Enterprise Transformation Solution Managers, and Graham Owen, Micro Focus Senior Product Manager from the Mainframe Solutions, and our partners from Stadia, Britt Hickman and John Oman, will share their expertise in one of the most important topics nowadays, how to move your IBM mainframe workloads to AWS. But before we start, let me quickly go over the agenda for today's webinar. Graham Owen will start by giving a quick overview of the latest happenings regarding infrastructure modernization, followed by how Micro Focus can help you move your workloads with our proven Enterprise Suite solution. Next, Antonio Esclavo will go over how the AWS Cloud Platform is the perfect cloud platform to host your critical mainframe applications through their scalable, reliable, and secure AWS Cloud Platform. And last but not least, John and Britt from Stadia will put it all together through a technical demo by showing live how our Micro Focus enterprise solutions in the AWS Cloud Platform can handle mainframe workloads. And now, just a few housekeeping items. If you are having trouble viewing this webinar, please click on the help icon located at the bottom right-hand side of your player. Later on this webinar, you will have a chance to get your questions answered during our Q&A session. Questions can be submitted at any time throughout the webinar via the questions box located in the lower right corner of your control panel. Any questions not answered during our Q&A today will be followed up on directly after this webinar. Once again, thank you for joining us, and Graham, please let's get started.
Right. Thanks, Julia. One of the most common questions we're asked when a customer first considers rehosting their mainframe applications to another platform using Enterprise Server is, where have you done this before? That's why I decided to start my section of this webinar with this slide. These are not all using AWS, but they are all Micro Focus customers who have rehosted a mainframe application using Enterprise Server and who have agreed to us publishing a customer success story. All of these customers are now successfully running mainframe applications on Linux, Unix, or Windows. The previous slide showed the diversity of our customer base with companies of varying sizes across multiple sectors located around the world. Enterprise Server has been used to rehost over 1,000 applications, making Micro Focus the market leader for deploying mainframe, COBOL, and PL1 applications to Linux, Unix, and Windows, on-premise or in the cloud. Now, the IBM mainframe remains an important element in the IT infrastructure of organizations big and small, providing a reliable and scalable platform for business-critical COBOL and PL1 applications developed over decades. However, for some organizations, the continued use of the mainframe for some of these applications presents a number of challenges. Some struggle with the complexity of integrating the mainframe within a standardized infrastructure. Others are unable to recruit and retain people with the skills and experience required to support the platform, and some can no longer justify the cost of the mainframe for all of the applications that they have. IT, of course, is driven by the demands and requirements of the business, and our customers are no exception. As businesses seek to expand, they need IT to be creative in supporting their growth initiatives when reaching new markets. When they are faced with regulatory challenges, like the need to keep data in the local country, the business expect IT to have a solution. When the dynamics of the market change and new low-cost competition emerges, the business looks to IT to cut costs. And when the business wants to improve operational processes and reduce the number of different applications used to deliver services, they expect IT to standardize and simplify. These are all the kinds of business problems that customers have solved using Enterprise Server. Using Enterprise Developer, you can continue to develop the application for the mainframe and also have the option to deploy to other platforms using Enterprise Server. This approach enables you to quickly create a single source multi-platform version of a mainframe application, retaining all of the existing functions and features. This new application can then be deployed using the platform that best matches the operational and cost requirements to address business challenges like reaching new markets, regulations, and emerging competition. Then, of course, there's the cloud. Cloud adoption is at record levels and continues to accelerate as organizations transform their IT infrastructure from a traditional on-premise approach to public cloud services. As more and more workload is successfully moved to the cloud, organizations are looking for solutions for the remaining workloads, like those currently hosted on the mainframe. In partnership with AWS, we have already have customers running rehosted COBOL and PR1 applications in the cloud using Enterprise Server. This has all been achieved using our existing products and approach. And Antonio will be sharing some examples of where we have done this later. I gave an example earlier of one of the common questions that we are asked when customers are considering rehosting applications. 3 others relate to specific areas of concern. They are technical. From a technical perspective, customers ask, does it work? They need to be confident that when they are using their application, Enterprise Server will produce exactly the same results as it does on the mainframe, whether it is the values displayed on a screen or a printed report. Operational, does it fit? Thinking back to some of the challenges associated with the mainframe, it is important that Enterprise Server integrates into the customer's chosen environment, whether that is Linux, Unix, or Windows, on-premise or in the cloud. And commercial, does it save money? Given that cost management is always high on the IT agenda, return on investment is always an important consideration. If we take time to look at each of these questions in a bit more detail, from a technical perspective, the best evidence we have of our capability is the number of customers successfully using Enterprise Server for rehosted applications. Enterprise Server is designed to provide a mainframe compatible environment that enables COBOL and PR1 online and batch applications to run with minimal change. I have a few slides later that cover some of the technical aspects of this in a bit more detail. Now, in the context of a customer project, our technical capabilities are often tested by the customer in a proof of concept, where a small representative application is deployed to evaluate the capabilities of our products. Banco Guayaquil is an example of a customer that adopted this approach, successfully proving that our products could run their COBOL applications before undertaking a full rehost. Compatibility is important. That's what really matters to our customers, and you'll get some insight into how compatible our products are in Britt's demo. Performance is another aspect of the does it work question, along with reliability. Customers expect both to be as good or better than the mainframe, and this is the normal outcome. Banco Guayaquil, for example, have achieved a 25% reduction in batch processing times. And system availability for the applications rehosted to Enterprise Server stands at 99.98%, compared to 99.28% for the mainframe. That's 2.5 days additional system availability every year. Being able to use a standard platform across a range of applications helps simplify operational processes, minimizing operational errors and reducing cost. For AKDB, the .NET platform from Microsoft is a fundamental building block in their core architecture. It is important that it is an environment that they understand operationally and one that they already have the skills and experience required to manage and support. By redeploying their mainframe COBOL applications to Enterprise Server for .NET, they have been able to simplify their operational processes, reducing the number of platforms they support while maintaining a high level of service for their customers. They have also been able to offer enhanced services to their existing customers by integrating the existing COBOL applications with a new user interface developed in C#, bridging the old and the new. With cost, specifically cost reduction, always being high on the list of IT priorities, it is important that our solution is cost effective. Enterprise Server helps with the cost issue by enabling customers to continue to use business-proven, fit-for-purpose applications developed over decades using lower-cost platforms. This provides a low-cost, low-risk alternative to rewriting or replacing with a package. For example, by rehosting their business applications to Enterprise Server on Linux, BGL BNP Paribas, based in Luxembourg, report a reduction of 80 to 90% in the annual operating costs associated with these business-critical applications. The scale of these savings meant that they were able to show a return on investment within 2 years while retaining all of the proven business processes. Now, the core of our Enterprise Server product is a mainframe-compatible execution environment that provides the interface that the rehosted COBOL and PL1 programs require to execute correctly. We also provide COBOL and PL1 compilers that are highly compatible with those running on the mainframe to ensure that any program that runs in Enterprise Server produces the same result, whether it is an online transaction, a web service, or a batch report. The high level of compatibility that we have achieved is the reason that we are confident that we can help you rehost your mainframe applications to AWS using Enterprise Server. For those of you who are used to all of the mainframe terminology, this chart summarizes how mainframe services are mapped to those in Enterprise Server. We support both the ZOS and the ZVSE operating systems, as well as the older versions like MVS if you're still using it. For batch, we support JCL from JES2, JES3, and Power. For transaction processing, we support KIX and IMS-TN. We support VSAM and IMS-DB data as part of the Enterprise Server, with DB2 data supported through a migration to DB2, LUW, SQL Server, or Oracle. Users can continue to access their applications using the same interfaces as before, including 3270. In his demo, Britt will show you a 3270 session connected to AWS. Finally, we support deployment using either a scale-up or scale-out approach. For deployment to AWS, a scale-out approach is usually preferred, but this will depend on the workload. Now, the great thing about deploying to AWS is the flexibility you have when determining the right architecture for your application and the ease with which you can dynamically reconfigure your environment. I'll hand over to Antonio now to explain more about why AWS is the best target platform for mainframe workloads running on Enterprise Server. Antonio.
So thank you very much, Graham, and thanks for inviting me. So as you said before, the cloud. Sorry, I need to take control. Okay, thanks. So the cloud has become the new normal. There are a lot of companies that of every size that are now deploying new application to the cloud by default. and they are looking to migrate as many of their existing applications as they can, as quickly as possible. So for enterprises, the question isn't if anymore. It's really just how fast can we move, and what are going to move first. Every company in the world has to keep transforming the customer experience and their business to remain competitive. And while having a lower cost structure is an enabler for transformation, it's typically not the main driver. The main drivers are agility and innovation. And the AWS Cloud enables this in a very significant way. So our customers have chosen AWS and they are continuing to choose to prefer AWS for our long experience in building and managing cloud infrastructure technology platform since 2006. For the breadth of functionalities and services that exist in AWS, we have more than any other cloud providers, and we continue to add new capabilities and new services at an accelerating pace based on the feedback of our customers. Only in 2017, we launched more than 1,400 new services and features. So our customers can benefit from this continual evolution, innovation, and iteration because they get the newest features instantly without need to upgrade, deploy, or to migrate. AWS enables customers to deploy globally in minutes. So we have the concept of a region, which is a physical location around the world where we cluster data centers. We call each group of logical data centers an availability zone. Using AWS, customers today can leverage on 54 availability zones across 18 geographic regions worldwide. And we don't plan to stop there. So we have an announced plan for 12 more availability zones and 4 additional regions. Thanks to the AWS pricing philosophy, AWS customer can replace large upfront expenses with lower variable costs and pay only for what they use and for as long as they need it. As well as our customer can leverage on AWS large partner ecosystem and on AWS marketplace offer. So typically, the mainframe workloads are the last ones to be considered in a scenario of massive migration. This is probably the more resistant environment for cultural, organizational, structural reasons. But today, the mainframe market is very different respect to some years ago. So we are seeing a growing demand of our customers that are asking us what to do with the mainframe. And taking a look to the main reason why the mainframe is still going on, so typically is the reliability, the security, the portability. We can definitely say that these key elements of the resistance are no longer valid because today an alternative, a valid and cheaper alternative exists. AWS Cloud can offer the same or stronger solution for the core business mainframe application of enterprise customers. AWS Cloud is reliable because as I said before, the AWS Cloud infrastructure is built around regions and availability zones. AWS regions provide multiple physically separated and isolated availability zones, which are connected with low latency, high throughput, and highly redundant networking in order to offer the maximum resiliency against system outages. In terms of cloud security at AWS is the highest priority. The AWS cloud infrastructure has been architected to be one of the most flexible and secure cloud computing environment available today. AWS has achieved a number of internationally recognized certification and accreditation, and the AWS scale allows significantly more investment in security policy and countermeasures that almost any large company could afford themselves. So we can definitely say that each AWS customer can benefit from a data center and networking architecture built to meet the requirements of the most security-sensitive enterprise organization. they can scale and innovate while maintaining a security environment. Regarding the portability, combining the AWS value proposition with the value proposition of our technology partner, like Micro Focus, we can support the mainframe customer to save the investment they have done over decades to develop their mainframe application. They can move in AWS their mainframe workloads using automatic tools to discover, access, recompile, and run their application code. In terms of new features, as I said before, the innovation is in the DNA of our company, AWS. So we are continuing developing, launching new features and services based on the feedback of our customer. Moreover, the customer can benefit of the agility and the elasticity that the cloud can offer. AWS lets customers quickly spin up resources as they need. The developers team can deploy hundreds or thousands of services in minutes. In terms of elasticity, the customer typically in on-premise are used to over-provisioning in order to ensure that they have enough capacity to handle their business operation at the peak level of activity. But in cloud, they can meet their user demands with a dynamic allocation in order to handle spikes. We have different migration patterns in order to migrate mainframe workloads on AWS. Today, I choose to present you the hosting approach using a compatible middleware layer like Micro Focus Enterprise Server. Because this approach allows the customer to save the investment that they have done along the years in order to develop, to refine their mainframe application. Basically, this solution runs existing mainframe application on an x86-based AWS EC2 instance, using a function equivalent mainframe layer. Moreover, the customer can minimize the impact on the end users because the user interface stays the same. So it is seamless from an end user point of view. And it doesn't require change to the standard mainframe technology. Using a Micro Focus platform, the customer can assess the existing environment in terms of infrastructure, architecture, application, and line of code. But at the same time, there is also the opportunity to use native services like Amazon RDS to host databases, Elastic Load Balancing, or the LDAP directory services. Moreover, the customer can create an end-to-end monitoring using Amazon CloudWatch. So in this scenario, the customer can increase the agility, configuring, for example, autoscale group that allow them to monitor the application workloads and automatically adjust the capacity in order to maintain steady, predictable performance at the lowest possible cost. So, as you can see in this picture, basically this scenario is probably the best one to modernize data store. So the customer can run their existing mainframe workloads, can rehost these workloads in AWS, leveraging on the security, the availability, and the scalability that AWS can offer. So, for example, we have a customer in the US in the food and beverage industry that has migrated their mainframe workloads in AWS using Micro Focus Enterprise Server, and they have achieved approximately 30% performance improvement and 100% reduction in infrastructure-related system outages during business hours and during nightly batch job. So this is only one of the migration patterns for the mainframe modernization. But regardless of the approach taken, it's important for companies to understand that mainframe workload should be considered in their migration strategy. This will result in a significant cost saving, increased agility, better performance, and a future-proof architecture.
Yeah, thanks, Antonio. So Antonio, if someone was to take our technology and map that into a broader Amazon environment, how would that look? You know, how would they go about doing some of that stuff? What are their options?
Yeah. Yeah, Graham, there are different options, different migration pattern, different configuration. But basically, if we consider the approach that can minimize the impact on the application code and the impact on the end user, so we are observing two main patterns. So the first one is related to approach the cloud with an hybrid scenario. So basically, the customer in this scenario can decide to move part of their mainframe workloads in AWS cloud. For example, moving their developer and test workload, leveraging on the agility that the AWS cloud can offer them. So this means that they can very quickly develop and roll out a new application. And it means that the developer team can experiment and innovate more quickly and frequently. And if any experiment fails, they can always deprovision those servers without risk and without any upfront investment. Besides using a Micro Fox platform, they can maintain the synchronization on the source code with their on-premise workloads, ensuring a consistent application lifecycle management. But there are also other different approaches. So there are other customers that are using an hybrid solution, but with a different scenario. For example, there is a bank in UK that is moving part of their mainframe workloads, starting from a specific country. Another one another customer in Germany decide to move in cloud the mainframe workloads, starting from a specific line of business. So this scenario can allow to use a step-by-step approach in order to decide the best strategy for the mainframe modernization. Typically, after this first step, there is a second step where the customer decide to move the entire mainframe workloads in AWS and moving also the entire application lifecycle. So whilst there is a lot of details on this slide at this stage, I would like to highlight that it's important to observe all the point of connection between the different elements of the pipeline. So like the planning, configuration management, coding, unit tests, continuous integration, test automation, and continuous deployment. So finally, we can say definitely that also for the mainframe, the cloud is becoming the new normal.
Thanks, Antonio. So now we're going to move to the demo portion of our session today, because it's always good to see the technology in action. And for our demo today, we have John and Britt from Astadia. Now Astadia have been a partner of ours for something like 20 years, and they've also been doing mainframe rehosts and migrations for 25 years. So John's going to give us a brief overview of the AWS Console and how that's used to manage the virtual server environment. And then Britt will show us the rehosted application as it works in the Amazon environment. So all I need to do now is pass control, give presenter rights to John. Which I do.
Thank you, Graham. I believe you should be seeing the AWS console. Is that correct?
I can see it, John. Thank you. I think it's thanks to Julia.
Well, thank you, Graham, for the introduction, and Antonio for the description of AWS. This is John Ullman from Astadia, and we've been partners of Micro Focus for over 20 years. I've been with them for over 28 years, and this is an exciting software that we've gotten into with the AWS Cloud Services. I was going to present to you how we took advantage of the cloud and have produced a demo for your viewing. What you are looking at is the AWS Console that they provide. And as you can see here from the items on here, they have helpful tips, and they use tutorials and videos to help you get through this. They also have classes, and you can become certified. I'm going to concentrate most of my time on the EC2. Before I get there, I'm going to mention the RDS, which is the database portion of the AWS services. This is the Aurora database. We've tested both the Aurora database, and we've also brought up DB2 in this environment. And also CloudWatch is how you monitor your database and your instances running. And you can see from all the services here, they have a lot to offer. It'd take you a while to get through learning all this, but the main part is the EC2, which is the instances. And I'm going to take you there now to our instances we've implemented for our state for Stadia here. I can view the by clicking on a search. I can view the IBM demo portion of this, and this is our base machine that we set up. It's a VM machine. I'm running a instance type of T2 extra large, which happens to be a 4-processor, 16 gigabyte memory. Also, I have a couple of auto scaling instances, which has to do with the load balancer, the elastic load balancer. And then I also have a machine that we set up to run the Micro Focus Silk software. Now, the Silk software is what we use to test out the base machine and the different levels of instant types. We also used it to test the load balancer and the auto scaling. We've produced a white paper on this, plus some other white papers on the AWS environment. But our main goal here is to look at the base, which will be the demo. If you notice the IP address down here, this is the IP address that Britt is going to be connecting to and showing you the enterprise server software running on that environment. Real quick here, like I mentioned, the auto scaling instances are set up using the load balancer. The load balancer software has many things that you can put in here. For instance, I can look at the instances running. I have 2 instances running under this load balancer. Also notice that I am working, he mentioned, Antonio mentioned regions, and there are several regions around the world that you can put your software or your AWS instance onto, and it sort of guarantees that you won't have an outage where you are, because you can spread it all around the world. From there, you can have availability zones, and my 2 instances right now are running out of 2 different availability zones. And if one goes out, the other automatically takes over, and the load balancer will automatically fire up another instance. You have health checks on the load balancer. You can tweak these parameters where you can guarantee that certain things pass the health checks for it to be marked as a healthy instance. You have listeners where you can set up listener ports for security. Right now, our port is 5352 that we are using. That will be used for our demo. And you can also monitor. You can check the unhealthy hosts, the healthy hosts, the processor being used. This can also be viewed using the CloudWatch environment. Once you set up the load balancer, you can set up the auto scaling groups that automatically scale up and scale down based on your needs of your workload. Right now I have a minimum of 2 machines running, which you saw running. and they are also viewed here. But also you can set a maximum. You can go quite large on this. So as two instances become busy or hit the threshold, the load balancer will automatically fire up another instance to handle the workload. And as the workload goes away, it will automatically shut down instances down to the minimum. And again, you can see the history of what's happened with your instances and your policies and all the monitoring that's available for the auto scaling. So back to the EC2 now and the running instances. Again, we will be showing at this IP, we'll be showing the demo connecting to this IP. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Britt, who's also an Astadia employee. That's an expert in the enterprise server software. So he will be taking that. If you can transfer control to Britt, he will take over and run with it.
Thank you, John. This is Britt Hickman. Are folks seeing my screen? You should be seeing a browser.
Yeah, I've got your screen, John. Britt, even.
Thanks, Graham. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Britt Hickman. I'm going to be showing you two demos in today's webinar. The first one is going to show you running a mainframe CICS COBOL application that has been rehosted into the Micro Focus Enterprise Server that's deployed on the Amazon Web Service. The second demo is going to be the enterprise developer. I just wanted to give you a quick look and touch and feel on our development environment. When I run the demo of the mainframe application that's been rehosted, we're running in the Astadia reference architecture environment that John was just showing you. And if you'd like to get more information about that, you can go to the Astadia website. So let's get started with the first demo. What I have here is I'm running on my local desktop. I have a browser that I've specified a URL of the IP address of the EC2 instance where Enterprise Server is running. This is the IP address that John was referring to in his presentation. You can see I have an Enterprise Server region called AWS ES, and that region is currently started. And what I'm going to be doing in this demo is connecting a 3270 session that's running locally on my desktop and connect to the enterprise server that's deployed in the AWS cloud. Now, in order to do that, I need to know what port is the 3270 listener that's running in the enterprise server, what port is it listening for 3270 connections. So I'll click on the details button here, and it's going to list all the listeners for this particular enterprise server region or instance. We can see down here for the TN3270 listener, it's listening at this IP address, which is the IP address of the EC2 instance on this particular port, 5352. So if I switch over to my 3270 terminal emulation software, I'm running Micro Focus Rumba. Let's take a look at the configuration of this connection. We'll see it's a TN3270 session, and we'll see that I'm connecting to the IP address of the EC2 instance, and I'm going to be connecting on port 5352. So let's go ahead and connect. So in my terminal emulator here now, I'm connected to the Micro Focus Enterprise Server that's running in the AWS cloud. And I'm going to execute the program or application that has been rehosted. So you can see here, this particular application is a tracking system. This is the main menu. And part of the key takeaway here is that after you've rehosted the application, the way your end users access the application is exactly the same as it is on the mainframe. You just have to change what port number their 3270 terminal emulation software is going to access. I'll go ahead and run a customer inquiry transaction. If I key in an A for the company abbreviation, it's just going to bring up the first customer that starts with the letter A, and then I can do B, C, D, etc. So as I said, this application is a mainframe COBOL CICS. It's been rehosted into the Micro Focus Enterprise Server environment, and that Micro Focus Enterprise Server is running in the AWS cloud. As I also referenced, the key thing here is your end users continue to access the rehosted application exactly as they were before via 3270 terminal emulation, and the look and feel of the application remains exactly the same. What I'd like to do now is move on to Enterprise Developer. Now, Enterprise Developer is a Micro Focus product. It's, as the name implies, a development environment. Micro Focus offers two versions of Enterprise Developer, both Visual Studio and Eclipse. What I'm showing you today in today's demo is the Visual Studio version. You can see over here in Solution Explorer, I have a solution called JSCT Studio that I've loaded. And within that solution, I have a project with the same name as the solution. What I'm going to demo for you is I'm going to execute a program called List Customer, and I'm going to execute it in debug mode and show you briefly just some of the features of the Enterprise Developer product. So in order to start the program in the debug mode, I'm going to go to the debug menu, select step in 2, and then that's going to start a debug session executing this particular program. You can tell you're debugging because of this orange bar down here. This is a Visual Studio feature. And you can see I'm in listcus.cbl, so this program is running, and I'm on the first executable line of code here in the procedure division. Couple words around colorization. You can see that COBOL reserved words such as filler, initialize, set, etc. are colored blue. And then any data fields that the program's defined are colorized as red. So that's just some eye catchers of what you're looking at. Now, as you're debugging the program, you can step through the program. And then, for example, if you're wondering what a particular data field, what its value currently is, you can hover or mouse over the field. And you can see here, we just executed the statement move 0 to z-return-code, and its value is 0, as we'd expect from that move 0 COBOL statement. We can tell here by the yellow arrow. Now here again, this is the next statement that's going to be executed. So we just executed this statement, 2304. If we mouse over the date 0-format field, we see that it now contains the current date. You can also right-click on the data field and add a watch, and it adds that data field to the watch window down here. You can expand this field name and take a look at the various elementary field levels and see what the current values are. You can also see over here on the right the data type of the field. Now, for example, if you were doing some regression testing and you wanted to set the date into the past, you could come here to the year field, which currently has a value of 18, double click that and change it to say 17, hit enter, and now you can see that the current date is 2017-04-26, etc. So now as you continue executing this program, any reference to the date would be 2017 rather than 2018. The last feature I'd like to show you is the ability to set breakpoints. For example, if you wanted to execute all the code here leading up to exec SQL connect, you can come out here to the left margin and click, and that sets a breakpoint on that line of code. And then you can zoom or continue the execution of the program, and it's going to stop on the next available breakpoint. So as a reminder, our current line, the next line that's going to be executed is up here. So if I click continue, it's going to run through all this code and stop on the next breakpoint. I'll go ahead and do that, and you'll see now we're currently down here on the exec SQL connect statement, which is where we set the breakpoint. You can see the red circle is still there. However, the yellow right arrow has been overlaid to indicate that the next statement to be executed is the SQL connect statement. So obviously this webinar is around rehosting your mainframe application. So we're not going to go into all the other additional feature functionality into Enterprise Developer. I would say that one of the key takeaways here is that for your existing development staff that already knows Visual Studio, or if you're an Eclipse shop, already know Eclipse, as they're tasked with perhaps maintaining the rehosted COBOL application, they're able to do that in a development IDE that they're already familiar with. So at that point, I'll hand it back to Graham.
Thanks, Britt. So we've seen the workload running in the cloud with Britt, but Antonio, if we've taken the application and we've successfully moved it into AWS, what's the art of the possible for a customer looking to the future, to extend their use of that and get more value from that application once it's been rehosted?
Yes, Graham, I think that the natural next step is to generate value from the mainframe data. The customer can really, we can say, unleash the mainframe data. So it has never been easier and less expensive to collect, store, analyze, and share the data than it is today in the cloud. There is a huge possibility to integrate the mainframe data with the existing workloads or with the different data source. And this can provide enhanced visualization and reporting. And this can enable correlation with the different platform and data sources. So AWS offers a comprehensive set of services to handle every step of the analytic process chain, including data warehousing, business intelligence, batch processing, stream processing, machine learning, and also data workflow orchestration. So the mainframe data sources provides the critical information that can enhance business decision and can help drive corporate initiatives. With this approach, the mainframe data will be available to business analysts who typically are not mainframe experts. Moreover, they can run their workloads in a secure environment, monitoring the resources and data using Amazon CloudWatch and Amazon CloudTrail, and controlling the access to the data, to the system, through the identity access management features. So definitely, we can say that there are plenty of opportunities and benefit coming from a mainframe modernization project. And we are ready to support customers in defining their cloud journey.
Thanks, Antonio. So Julia, we've kind of heard about what we can do in terms of taking mainframe applications, taking them into a platform which can then be deployed to AWS and all the potential. But what are some key takeaways and follow-ups for our customers from today's webinar?
Thank you, Graham, and thank you, Antonio, Britt, and John. Outstanding presentation. Just before going there, Graham, I see we have several questions that are coming in. But before, I would like to talk about our limited time offer and what is next. If you could move it for me, Graham, please. So throughout our partnership with AWS, Micro Focus and AWS are able to provide this limited time offer to support you with all the information you will need when you're starting your journey on moving your workloads to AWS. So Micro Focus will run a detailed assessment related to your mainframe application or applications that you'd like to move to AWS. And together with the AWS team, we will provide you with the assessment and recommendations you will need to move your mainframe workload to the AWS cloud platform. Now, as an added bonus, AWS is offering a $5,000 in AWS credits that can be applied towards a proof of concept. To take advantage of this limited time offer, you could please contact your account manager. You could access our website or simply send an email. And if you're in the Americas, you could send to jeff.delicia@microfocus.com, or in EMEA, you can contact news@peterson@microfocus.com. And now back to our questions. So our first question, it is, could enterprise developer be run in AWS as well? And if so, could it connect to enterprise server running in AWS for debugging kicks or JCL jobs?
Wow, that's a nice simple question to start off with. The answer is yes. Enterprise developer is fully supported in that environment, and clearly that's one of the real benefits of moving into Amazon, is that you can detach everything from the on-premise situation and do that. So the answer is yes.
Outstanding. So there are a few questions that is related to changing the code you want to migrate. So hopefully I will pick one that will be able to cope all the other ones. So could you move without COBOL application refactoring, like as a big monolithic application?
Yeah, the short answer to that is yes. Enterprise server is designed to run the same monolithic applications as you would currently run on a mainframe. So we wouldn't expect any refactoring to be required to get that application to run in the first instance. The secondary question would obviously be, would you want to continue with that monolithic application as you look to do things with it in the new environment, like make microservices? But initially you would run the application just as is and in that monolithic format.
Thank you, Graham. And I think this other one I will ask because I think it's related. Can we move vSAN data to AWS?
Yes, you can. That's because Micro Focus fully support vSAN data. So you would simply export the vSAN data using IDCAMs and then re-import it using our IDCAMs compatible utilities in Enterprise Server. And you can do that in either EBCDIC or ASCII, depending on what your choice of data format on the redeployed applications.
Thank you. And interesting enough, we have a few questions related to assembler. So yes, how do you handle 370 assembler applications?
Okay, we do not run 370 assembler. So our approach to assembler is to convert it typically to COBOL, possibly C. And the actual approach we would take would depend on the volume. So for a small number of programs, which we typically see these days, we would do that by hand. For large volumes of assembler, we have a number of partners who can help with the automated conversion of assembler to COBOL or to another language. That said, one of the things we do find on a lot of rehosts is that the bulk of the assembler that remains in most customers is associated with exits and systems utilities, which you do not need to replicate. But we do not run or compile assembler in our environment, so you have to convert it. Thank you, Graham. And so what I'm trying to do here is to select questions that will cover several of the others. And as expected, we do have questions related to security. So here we go. Are we able to use RACF security data, replace direct to AWS, or will Micro Focus support any security layer to use the existing security data to migrate? So if I understand the question correctly, the question is, can we extract rules from RACF and then use those to build the relevant security policies using something like LDAP, for example, for the rehosted application to then provide the same level of security and the same types of access for users? And if that is the question, the answer is yes, we can. Okay, thank you. Why are they all for me today, Julia? You are in high demand here, Graham, today. Very popular. How is DB2 data converted and to what format? So if you're using DB2 data, then you would move it either to DB2 LUW, to Microsoft SQL Server, or to Oracle. The restrictions on data migration and data conversion are based on the level of compatibility that exists between DB2 on the mainframe and your chosen database. So most data will move fairly transparently, but because the DB2 does support some special data types that other platforms don't support in quite the same way, there may need to be some refactoring. But most of the time, all of those kind of issues are well understood and well known by DBAs, and they should be able to help you. Thank you. And we do have a AS400 question here. Is there a current or planned provision for AS400 iSeries COBOL application within the Enterprise Server 3.0 to be moved to AWS environment? There's two answers to that question. The first one would be, can Micro Focus help customers with AS400 COBOL to migrate away from the AS400 to Windows, Linux, or Unix? And the answer is yes. And there are two approaches that we can take with that. The first approach would possibly be using actually our Visual COBOL family of products, because that may be better suited to the application. The second approach would be to use Enterprise Server, but that would typically be where customers have used a Kix variant that's available in the AS400 environment, which was relatively compatible with the Kix that we actually emulate as well. That's definitely a question though to get in touch with us about, so we can go into some more detail and more fully understand the requirement. So we can best position how the technologies we have could best help you solve that problem. So do drop me an email, whoever had that question, and I'll put you in touch with the relevant people. Thank you, Graham. And we have time for one more question, and I will try to pick one. I use one here. How do we replicate mainframe LPARs into Micro Focus Enterprise Server? That's a very, very difficult question to answer without understanding the LPAR strategy that you've adopted. If we're simply talking about test and production kind of LPARs, then you would have typically have separate test servers and production servers, as you would in a typical open systems environment. Essentially, we would recommend that you review your strategy for LPARs and why you've determined the structure you have, and then align that with an implementation of servers and or multiple regions on a server using our technology. So it's a very difficult question to answer accurately without understanding the infrastructure that's in question. But if you wanted to run multiple LPARs, that would effectively for us be multiple server instances. If you wanted to run more like multiple regions, then there's different ways of doing that. Sorry, that was a bit of a woolly answer, but again, if you've got the person who asked that question, if you've got a very specific case in mind, then please do drop me a private email, and with some more detail, I can give you a better answer.
Thank you, Grant. And perhaps that would be a good case for the free assessment offer that we have. We could certainly work with you and make sure we understand what your goals are and have our free assessment done. With that, I would like to thank you, Antonio, Graham, John, and Britt, for your time today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today on this webinar. This concludes our webinar, and have a great day. Thank you.